Can I get a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda?
We need to take a vote on it.
Oh, thank you, Tim. All in favor, please raise your hands.
Aye.
All right, we're unanimous. Okay. Can I get a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda?
I move to approve tonight's consent agenda.
I second.
Great, it's moved and seconded. Any comment? All right, all in favor, please raise your hand. And unanimous, great. All right, do we have a student representative tonight?
Harder at the wrestling meet, I just saw her.
Okay, okay. So we don't have one tonight. All right, so and we're going to start with unfinished business. We have action item to approve the 2022-2023 inter-district transfer caps.
Okay, last week I informed you about the transfer caps and how we would like to go about it. And tonight I'd like to recommend that we not set transfer caps and that we accept incoming transfer requests with no cap for grades K through 11, the inter-district transfer process for the first semester of the school year. We will not accept inter-district transfers for the second semester.
Great. Is there any questions for Mike? All right. Can I get a motion to approve?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve.
In a second.
And I'll second that. Yep, I'll second it.
All right. Any questions or comments?
A question, and I apologize, I wasn't here last month, so I was looking at the notes. If you already talked about this, I apologize, but is this common that we don't accept second semester?
Yes.
Or is there a particular reason? Okay, this has just been our standard practice.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments? All right. All in favor, please raise your hand. And it's unanimous. Brilliant. All right. So the next item is to discuss budget committee vacancies. Mike, do you?
Yeah.
Or Marilyn, yeah.
Ashley,
Yeah.
we have got one response for the sitting budget committee members. Chris Witham would like to continue. Debbie
Okay.
has declined. So I posted for 3 and I've not heard anything.
Okay. So we have 3 open.
Yes.
Okay. I guess if anybody has any friends that want to sit on the budget committee, spread the word about how much fun it is. Mike, did you have anything to add to that at all?
No, I was going to give the same update.
Okay. Perfect. All right. So our next item is a little information and discussion about the superintendent evaluation. We'll be doing Mike's evaluation next month. He's working on his self-evaluation this month. We were going to get together as a group and discuss the rubric and just get a general consensus and understanding on the way that we were going to grade Mike. So I wanted to pull the group and see if everybody would be available on next Tuesday, February 15th at 6 or 7 p.m. to get together and chat about this. So we are all just understand what is expected of us as far as grading Mike. Does anybody have a conflict or able to do that next Tuesday at 6 or 7?
That works for me.
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay, cool.
I'm good.
And it just is going to be for 1 hour. So do you have a preference over 6 or 7?
Nope.
Actually,
Mike, you were cutting out.
no, probably earlier the better for me.
Okay, perfect. So
The-
we'll go
probably
ahead and do it
earlier
next
the better
Tuesday
for
at
me.
6 o'clock. I'll have Marilyn get all that information sent out to us.
So Ashley will be a work session.
Yeah, work session for 1 hour next Tuesday the 15th at 6 o'clock.
Okay, great.
And we'll do it. Was this, Mike, do you recall if we were going to do this one in person or is it going to be on Zoom?
I'm not sure. Probably Zoom, I would think.
Zoom. Okay, perfect. All right, great. Marilyn, would you be able to send Debbie an email and see if she can make it? Because I don't see her on tonight.
Yes, I will. I will
She's
do
at the
that.
wrestling meet, but if I
Okay.
can ask her right now if you're okay with that.
Well, just so we have a quorum, so I think we're good, but just to make sure she has the information that we're going to do it. We don't forget about her.
Are we thinking 1 hour or 2 hours?
Just 1 hour. Yeah, just 6 to 7. All right. Okay, so next up is a new business, and we have an action to accept the 2021 Audit Report. And Mike, we have a guest on for this, right?
Yes, we do. Larry is with us, and he's going to speak to the audit report.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Larry.
I'm here to answer any questions you have and to walk you through the report if that's your desire. Has everyone had a chance to take a quick look at the financial statements?
I'm just pulling mine back up here. Did anybody have any questions for audit report?
I can share my screen and walk you through it a little bit if that's your desire. But
Sure. Yeah, if you want to just highlight it for us, that would be great.
Okay. Everyone, say.
Barry, I needed to make you a co-host so you could share your screen. You should have the ability to do that now.
Okay. Is this the screen that you can see with the audit report on it there?
And we can see the report, Larry.
Okay, great. I can make that a little bit wider so that it's more easy for you to see. So I think the best thing for you to do for this report, there's a couple of ways you can look at it. I think it's important that you all familiarize yourself with the management's discussion and analysis, which follows our opinion, which I just scrolled by. So this kind of gives you some financial highlights for the year and an overview of the financial report. So in the government-wide, the district, the net position increased by about $2.5 million over the year. There's a large amount of that's capital assets that you're using for, you can't spend that, obviously, but this is on the full accrual basis, the government-wide statements. I'm going to make this one page at a time so I can jump around a little more quickly. Is that still readable for you? Okay. Then there's a a summary here of the comparative statement of the June 2020 to June 2021. You can see the changes in assets was 257,000, and then liabilities went up by 1.2 million, and then the changes here on the statement of activities show the change in that position was $200,000, and whereas it went down $1 million in the prior year. So these are government-wide statements, all funds, including capital assets and long-term debt, which you don't see in the fund statements. And the big item here is the PERS long-term liability. Obviously, you don't have to pay that next year, or that'd be a problem. But the capital assets and some of these long-term liabilities are added into the full accrual statements so that the district can see the long-term implications of any short-term decisions. And then the MD&A also summarizes some of the general fund and just what's happening in the capital assets and debt administration during the year. You can see that capital assets went down mostly just due to normal depreciation expense that was recorded during the year. Debt's also being paid down a bit. So, the district has a lot of capacity here. You could borrow up to $100 million roughly, and the outstanding bonded debt is just a little over $8.5 million. So you have a lot of capacity. Obviously, you don't want to borrow $100 million, but that's the legal limit. So this is the detailed statement that we just were summarized in the management's discussion and analysis of the statement of net position. We have a negative unrestricted net position due to the nature of these long-term liabilities being in excess of and your capital assets are being depreciated also. And then this is the full accrual government-wide statement of activities, which shows your expenses for the year of $18 million, and then some program revenues that offset those. And then your general revenues are the balance of what your revenues are to fund the education system in there in Creswell. So here's the net change of $200,000. But what you are going to normally want to see the general fund to manage your business. This is the balance sheet for the major funds and then other governmental funds and totals. See, this balance sheet doesn't include long-term capital assets or long-term debt. It's on the what they call the modified accrual basis of accounting. And so its measurement focus is more short-term in nature. You're looking at the next 12 months. What do we need to get through the next 12 months? What revenues and expenses are coming due in this current or next year to fund our operations. So you're always interested in what is our ending general fund balance. Let's go on down here a little bit to this is a reconciliation between the modified accrual, your fund balances, and the full accrual total net position. So these are the items you can see here that are being added or subtracted from fund balances on the modified accrual to get to full accrual net position. And here's your long-term debts being added, as well as your PERS net pension liability and some other post-employment benefit liabilities related to PERS or health insurance subsidies. This statement It shows the revenues and expenditures for the general fund and all the other major funds, as well as the combination of the remaining non-major funds, which the details are in the back of the report for those. This shows you had 14 million or almost 15 million in revenue and almost 13 and a half in expenditures. So your fund balance for the general fund went up $1 million from 2.2 to 3.3 almost. Here's another reconciliation that reconciles your change in fund balances. Here is 1.7 million that went up during the year. This next page reconciles that number to the net change and on the full accrual basis. So these are the payments of long-term debt, the purchases of capital asset, and changes in the other liabilities. And deferred inflows and outflows, which are asset and liability like things that aren't assets or liabilities. But then the footnotes go into detail on talking about what I've explained as far as the method of accounting for each of the funds, each of the statements, details of the major funds being presented. And then this talks about the measurement focus, which I explained a little bit about earlier, just having a long-term focus on the government-wide economic resources measurement focus versus your governmental funds have a measurement focus of the current financial resources, or what do we need to get through the next 12 months. So there's significant accounting policies that are described here in the first part of the notes, and then there's some details about each of their cash and investments, your capital assets, your long-term debt, some other pension. The pension footnote goes on and on. There's a lot of information there that's somewhat educational. If you're not real familiar with PERS, it does go into some detail there that's helpful to understand the system a bit. So there's a lot of pension, and then OPEB footnote here that talks about all of the actuarial assumptions and gyrations that go into the estimation of these liabilities. And there were a couple of over expenditures of appropriation authority. So I think just points out that toward the end of the year, if there are, you take a look at the remaining appropriation authority. I know that there's a lot happens in the month of June with all the payrolls that hit that month and such, but I think you just need to, you can move money around appropriation authority if you need to cover some unanticipated stuff that's over budget. So something to put on your list of things to do for May and June of each year. Of course, the grants fund had a deficit balance at the end of the year also. The required supplementary information gives more information about the net the pension liabilities and PERS information on contributions for both the PERS and the OPEB plans. Medical subsidy, and then it'll expand to be 10 years of information in the required supplementary information over time. And then there's also in the required supplementary information, the major governmental funds or major general and special revenue funds are reported. The budget and actual statements are reported here. So you can see that the difference here between their budgetary basis and the GAAP basis, as well as just the detail of the revenues and expenditures for the general fund versus budget. Facilities fund, another major special revenue fund, and then the grants fund, the third one. there's some footnotes on that RSI, and then the other governmental funds, budget to actual statements follow, debt service, and then binding balance sheet and the combining statement of revenues and expenditures for the 5 non-major governmental funds: nutrition, student activity, scholarship, student body, and vehicle replacement. And the summarizing or combining statement of the revenues and expenditures followed by their budget to actual statements. For each of those 5. Then the Department of Education wants to see a revenue and expenditure summary for each type of funds. So these are the detailed expenditures by function and object that the Department of Education reconciles to the audit, to their from the electronic submission to the audit report. This is a little information that they use for allocating monies as well. Then in the compliance area, we have minimum standards for audits of Oregon municipal corporations that require us to take a look at these, including but not limited to these items. And what's not listed here that is included in this is your SIA monies, or student investment account monies. You've probably been talking about that for the last couple of years, and this is the first year that the minimum standards have required us to take a look at that. Department of Ed came out with an audit program for us to look to. They gave us some items that they wanted reviewed, and so that was incorporated in this opinion. And so the only exception mentioned here is the expenditures in excess of appropriations. So you had some expenditures over budgeted authority that we talked about earlier in the footnote. And then there's an opinion on, this is the schedule of expenditures of federal monies. There was about $1.1 million in total federal dollars spent. There's these, there's some COVID-19 money here from, I think there's lots of acronyms that are thrown around, ESSER and GEAR, and the different federal stimulus monies that have been coming through different federal agencies. But so there's roughly $300,000 of your COVID-19 monies that were expended through June 30th of 21. So there's additional audit requirements for federal dollars. And then, so there's these there's footnotes about that schedule. And then there's our 2 opinions on, this is on government auditing standards, which talks about the internal controls over financial reporting and on compliance with other matters based on audited financial statements performed in accordance with GAGAS. There's another opinion here on the uniform guidance, which is the Office of Management and Budget puts out information. They have a compliance supplement that is kind of our recipe book for how to audit federal dollars. And so we look at compliance requirements that the federal government wants us to take a look at, so that they don't have to send a bunch of other auditors out to review those other dollars. And so there were no findings on that. This is then at the very back here. There's the last 2 pages of the report talk about the summary of the auditor's results. We have an unmodified opinion, which is good. There were no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies on financial statements. There were no findings on federal awards. The major programs that we audited as part of the single audit were the Child Nutrition Cluster and the Education Stabilization Fund, which is the COVID-19 dollars that came through the Department of Education. And due to the material weakness a couple of years ago, this should be the last year that you were not a low risk auditee. So that just if that is not a yes, if you haven't had 2 consecutive single audits without findings, there's a higher threshold of expenditures to audit for major program selection. So that was a lot, I know, and it's so I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have regarding the process or any of that. So
great. Thank you so much for walking us through it, Larry. Does anybody have any questions for Larry?
this is the most important part right here. So we get your name spelled correctly.
Great. Cool. If there's no questions, we'll go ahead and I will ask for a motion to accept the 2021 audit report.
I move to accept the 2020 audit report.
I'll second.
Great. Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? Great. All in favor, please raise your hand. And it's unanimous.
So that's for the 2021 audit report, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I should probably say that again because I followed and said 2020. So for purposes
Oh.
of having a good record, we should probably say I move to approve the 2021 audit report.
Perfect. Can I get a second?
Second.
Great. All in favor, please raise your hand. There we go. Awesome. All right. Larry, thank you so much for coming on tonight. You're welcome to go free. I know it's your busy season and you probably got more work to do. So you're welcome to step off if you would like to. Thank you so much for coming on and explaining the audit to us tonight.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right. The next thing on the agenda under new business is discussion of achievement data.
I wanted to present the annual data to you. Your school board goal number 1 is increasing student achievement for all students. That's your number 1 goal. Under the board goal for increasing student achievement, you have the student achievement indicators. These indicators were named under the student achievement goal to specifically measure the district's progress toward increasing student achievement. In my report, I have included our current data for each student achievement indicator, and there are 8 of them. And the 8 indicators are reading proficiency, and that's the ELA state assessment by grade, math proficiency, and that's the math state assessment by grade, grade 9 on track to graduate, on-time graduation, that's the 4-year cohort rate, completion rate, 5-year completer, career and technical education participation, college level coursework participation, and regular attendance grades K-12. As you may recall, back in the fall, OSBA Representative Vince Adams informed us during our board training at that time that student achievement goals for the district are set on baseline data from the state summative assessment, which measures students' proficiency with the Common Core standards. The state assessment is conducted annually, but we have not had a state assessment for ELA math and science since 2019 due to COVID. However, we do have current summative data for 9th grade on track, graduation cohort rates, completion rates, 5-year completer, and regular attendance rates. This spring, we will be administering the state assessment for the first time since 2019, and we'll have a new set of student achievement data for ELA math and science to include in our student achievement data trends for 2022. When you look at the data, you can see that for math and ELA, our students have historically performed, not quite to the levels that we want them to. About 50% or so, 55% in math, and at 50% or below in ELA, with the exception of the 11th grade for ELA, they're consistently above 60%. And in math, the exception is 3rd grade, which kind of goes to the higher end of the 50s, the upper end of 50s. But with the last 2 years of distance learning, it stands to reason that the proficiency levels or the achievement gaps that we had before COVID have widened for the majority of our students. In the absence of summative data from the past 2 years, which I would be able to provide for you or have been providing for you, and you would see on this trend, we still need to diagnose student learning gaps. So we're using the iReady assessment for interim assessments to provide real-time actionable data to teachers for immediate use with each student's progress and achievement gaps. And for formative assessment, iReady we can use for formative assessment as well, for benchmarks to inform us on student cohort progress, cohorts for grade levels and whole school. So we have one benchmark which we set our baseline at, and that's the first assessment we gave in the fall. Our second benchmark we have conducted in January, and we'll get the data from that second benchmark that will tell us how much progress our students have made since the beginning of the year when they took the first assessment. So next month, well, I planned on giving you that data this month, but because of Omicron and how Omicron hit us, we were not able to complete the assessment in January when we had it scheduled. So we're just now completing it into the first week because of and I'll go over the enormous levels of absences or student absences later on, well, teacher absences too, that kind of interfered with us completing the second benchmark assessment. But we've now got it in, and so we'll get that data and have it back for the next board meeting. And you'll be able to see, without a summative benchmark from this year or from last year, how much progress we've been able to make, how large and how wide the gap was of our student learning by cohorts, but also how we've been able to increase and fill those gaps to close them and increase student achievement. When you look at the data, there's a couple of things I want to mention. At the 11th grade ELA, English Language Arts, just pointing back to 1819, at that time, we were recognized in the state as one of the top 10% high schools for 11th grade achievement in English Language Arts. Top 10% out of 197 school districts. And I don't know how many, I think it's 360 something schools, high schools. So top 10%. That was a high achievement for any school. So I just wanted to point that out in the data. And then if we look to the graduation rates in 2021, when we look at that, we were named and ranked as one of the best high schools in Oregon, top 50, and as one of the best high schools in America by US News publication. Based on the rigor of our courses, the college prep courses that we offered, the students that participated, the percentage that participated in that, and our graduation and our attendance rates, all included in that, that research, and to recognize the high schools that made the cut into the top, I think 2,500 high schools in America, I think, 2,500, 25,000. Anyway, it was a really good recognition for Creswell High School. And that's something we want to continue to improve on and be recognized at that level across the country. Any questions about the data?
Mike, I think I have all kinds of questions because I don't know how to look at this and know what's working, what's not, what's successful. How do we make sure we keep those supports going? Because this isn't comparing the same group of kids throughout, right?
It will, if you look at it diagonally. We'll say like on the front page with 11th grade ELA. If you look down to 14, 15 on the left-hand bottom corner, you can see how that cohort moved up to 15, 16, 16, 17, and 17, 18.
Okay, so 6th grade ELA in 2014-15 would have become 7th grade ELA in 2015-16.
Mm-hmm.
And then it would have become 8th grade. So, okay.
And if you look on the back of that page, you can see that all the way from 3rd grade when we start the state assessments.
Man, we need to color code those bars.
Yeah, there's a lot of different angles to look at it, and I wasn't intending to do a data dive with you at this board meeting, but I did want to present with the achievement indicators so that you had that data. It's the data that I don't know that you've seen trends over the years. I'm providing with trends. You've usually seen a 1-year snapshot on the data, but if you're going to have significant information, you need to look at the trends and understand how things have gone historically. And so
you'll do a deep dive with us, so I don't need to worry about like asking all my questions that come from these pages tonight because I'll miss my opportunity. There will be another opportunity.
I think the simple way, and you point your first question, if you're analyzing this data, you can look at it horizontally from left to right to see how things are consistent or inconsistent with the performance year to year. And then you can look at it diagonally or vertically to see how a cohort has moved up and made progress or not, or how much achievement has moved up or not from year to year with the same cohort. Those are really the only two ways to really analyze this data in this presentation. And that's a lot. That's a lot more than you're used to or any board sees, but
and I guess another question I would ask for when you're ready to do a deeper dive, are there opportunities to look at the supports or the different things that schools have tried so that I'll make this up, the middle school is starting a new reading intervention at noon and they started it in a certain year. Is there a way to see that the growth in the kids that went through that school prior to the intervention started was smaller than the growth that happened in those years after the intervention, right? Are there opportunities to look, here's a tool overlaid on the data and this tool shows this worked?
I don't know, because we have 2 years of not being able to provide the same supports that have been provided before.
Sure, okay.
Because we've been in distance learning. We can look and see what strategies we're using now to intervene and provide support, and how we've addressed this here. I'd have to dig into the archives to see what data what existed before the last 3 years to get that answer.
Mhm.
And
So we would be able to look at tools that you tried this year and see the growth in the kids from this year. So not necessarily year after year, but
well,
the whole year.
there are programs that we were able to continue during CDL, like our ELL program and working on student achievement in ELL, and we did continue to monitor that data.
Mhm.
And but the programs that we implemented during the last 2 years that we are now engaging students in, we'll be able to cover all of that information.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay.
See where our investments have gone.
Okay. I guess where I'm going is the data is super helpful. I want to know how to read the data. Then in order for us to make sure as a board, we're doing things that are helpful and we're making sure.
Mhm.
I just want to know, how do we continue to support the things that are proving to be well? And you're going to have to guide us through those conversations. I don't know how to tease any of that out.
Absolutely. And
Okay.
do all that at once would be way overwhelming. So I'm bringing you in.
Bite size.
Yeah, we're starting with baby steps, so to speak.
Okay.
As looking at a view of trend is challenging enough to move on or process. And I wanted you all to have some time to process this particular set of data,
Okay.
these data. So just to know what has been happening.
I have
And
a
yes.
similar but different question. How does iReady play into this? I've heard, little bits, and I'm just curious how it plays into moving the dial.
iReady is really phenomenal. It's a huge push for student success. But what it does is teachers are able to engage students in iReady for assessments, but also monitor their work, the progress in their work. And if they're not working towards progress in a certain standard, that standard is identified through iReady. Then they can go directly back to that student and say, okay, we need a little bit more work in organization for a writing piece or in one of the other writing concepts, because it's showing up in the iReady feedback from the system. And then in the other way that we use it is that iReady, we're doing one full assessment on a test against the standards at the beginning of the fall. And the next assessment, this is a formative assessment process. The next benchmark is now in January. And our third benchmark would be in the spring, so that we're monitoring student progress and responding to whole cohorts with pieces that may be missing in the curriculum, a standard that's not being taught to. For example, if the whole cohort isn't performing well against that one standard, then we can look to our curriculum and say, okay, are we getting that standard in there? Or do we need to review that standard and so on for the cohort or grade level? So there's two ways to use iReady in math and reading.
But from a budgetary perspective, do the teachers have what they need to be able to use all of those tools? And they have enough resources to be able to do the regular planning and incorporate whatever these adjustments are?
They absolutely love iReady. I hear them talking about that. I was in the ELA adoption meeting today that Amy Aguero had with 3 schools, and iReady popped up, in the conversation on supporting the curriculum and all the needs that they have as teachers for instruction and how to support kids. I'd like to invite Amy in to talk a little bit more about iReady. She she led that effort and is working with the staff on the assessments. So Amy, you got?
Yeah, I can speak a little bit. So going back a little smidge here. So we're currently piloting portions of iReady. So this year we decided we really needed to have some alignment with our assessments, and so K-12. And so we invested in iReady for that purpose. Well, as we were diving into that journey, we also realized, and Mike, you've done a phenomenal job of explaining how it really does support standards-based assessment, and we can see those holes and those gaps, and then teachers can address those specific needs, and or remedial instruction can happen in a small group setting. But as we were diving into it, we realized there's actually some great resources. So to answer your question, do teachers have the tools they need? Yes, they love the program, but part of the supplemental piece is when we do have a kiddo who either needs acceleration and or is struggling in a certain area, then we have those specific resources that iReady provides for the teachers to use, just a little mini lesson to help reinforce and or accelerate those learning opportunities for students. So for staff at this point, and as we're diving next year into a math adoption, this has been a really important and exciting resource for them to utilize that does bring some alignment, but also some really accessible and easy to use tools for our students online as well as in person. So it's been a hit with our staff this year.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. And I should say we assessed both reading and math. And so we're able to provide those individualized acceleration or remedial lessons for both content areas.
And you said K through 12?
Yes, well, caveat here, K through 8, but we are using it for high school because we do have some students that are, well, we're using the benchmark assessments in general for our some of our high school students, but some who are below or are performing below grade level. It's a great resource for that population of students. Does that make sense?
Kind of. I totally get the K through 8. So for those at the high school level that have been identified as performing below, do they continue to take the iReady and then the teachers have the tools to offer additional help, or what is that?
So the benchmark piece, yes. So we can
Okay.
still measure if there's areas of growth and or not growth. So we can still use it as a tool to help guide instructional strategies. But you are right, Candace, most of the instructional pieces that we're using for iReady aren't for your mainstream kiddos. It's going to be for our students that have some extra needed support. So our special education teachers are using it, for a learning tool more regularly.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome. And we're also piloting it at high school. So we will decide if it's a useful tool to continue to invest in as we wrap up this year.
Great.
Thank you, Amy.
All right. Next up is discuss the OSBA Bonds and Ballots Conference on April 8th in Salem.
Yes, that is coming up. That conference is happening. When I first came on board, we attended that back in 2019-20. It's a phenomenal workshop, and I would encourage everyone to participate in that. Again, they really have a lot of breakout sessions for different things to do with districts and school boards, but the focus on bonds and ballots is really educational. It's good stuff to know. Lacey?
So as we're planning out facility issues and looking at what needs to happen, I know individually when we've met with Mike and just when we look at facility issues, there's a lot of things that need to happen at the high school. And whether it's next year or 4 years from now, I think the ballots or the bonds conference would be helpful just for our overall basic learning on what is that process, what's our role as a board, What's the responsibility? What does this whole thing look like? And the conference only happens every 2 years. So it's happening this April, and then it will be again in 2024. So if you're available on April 8th, I think it would be good for us to get in there and do some learning on what a bonds process looks like in case there's a good timing for us to deal with some of the facilities at the high school.
So far, I'm available.
Awesome. So what I would say is, Marilyn, Tim's already given notice, and anybody else that would like to attend, email Marilyn and she will get us registered. And it's just a single day. So there's no hotel or overnight stuff that you have to worry about with families. It's just a day. And it appears to be in person so far.
I'm in, Marilyn.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Cool. Lacey, do you want to take over for the rest of the
Maryland.
Sure, I'm happy to. Thank you for doing it, Ashley. I
Yes,
appreciate that.
absolutely.
I needed time to get my son home from his basketball game, which was probably one of the most intense games I have seen, by the way. 8th grade played hard against Pleasant Hill. All right, so we are on trustee reports. Mark, you want to start?
Sure. Other than meeting with the middle school principal, that's about the only thing I have to. It was a really informative meeting. We did. What is that? We talked about iReady quite a bit.
I'll put it on the way.
So that's about it.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. Mike?
About the only thing I've done is we went to the Pleasant Hill basketball game last week, guys and the girls. And that was fun. And the guys went into 2 overtimes. And I was really proud of the kids for the whole game. It was fun to watch.
Okay, Mike, either you cut out, your internet was going in and out. So I'm hoping you're done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. You were really slow for a while and then you just sped right up and talked real fast.
Oh, the connection here is terrible.
Yeah.
I've had to get reconnected a couple times. So if I disappear, you'll know what's going on.
Okay, well, thanks for sticking in there with us and sharing. Tim?
On January 13th, Thursday, I saw the Creswell High School drama presentation about the internet and how fun that can be. And that was very enjoyable. And
Yeah, I think so.
then on Thursday, January 27th, I sat through an OSBA Zoom presentation on superintendent empowerment and learned some things of what to do and how not to treat Mike. And then last but not least, on Tuesday, February 8th, which would be yesterday, I had a very nice conversation with Julie and Creswell Middle School tour. And Lacey, you mentioned some things for the high school for bond. I would say there's some things we can be doing at the middle school as well. And that's all for me.
Awesome. Candace?
So I have been able to, so we've been holding softball open gyms 2 times a week. So we get to spend lots of time with the girls, 1 hour a night, 2 days a week, which is nice to see them all again. And we start season on the 28th of this month. So we're excited. I got to go to the wrestling meet tonight for the first hour or so. It's senior night for the wrestlers tonight. This week I met with Mike and OSBA to have some conversations. I've been talking with Jenny at the high school about how CEF can support the welding program at the high school and some CTE work that they're working through. And I've been to a myriad of boys and girls basketball games, to which I do not remember all of them, and have the pleasure of running concessions a couple times during that also. So that's what I've done.
Fantastic. Thank you. Ashley?
I did our leadership meeting with Mike and Lacey last week. I also got to attend a Lane ESD meeting. And then I'm still doing my every other week food delivery, food for kids on Friday nights. That's about it.
Thank you. I've seen all the 8th grade basketball boys play basketball, and tonight it was super, super close with Pleasant Hill. They play well, but we were ahead, and then the last minute we lost like by 2 points. So that was a real bummer. I read with IRC, done the food deliveries. I had a great conversation with Julie as well at the middle school. Mike, those tours that she's giving and the conversations that she's having are going really well. She previewed, even though, I mean, she caveated very well, not all the kids at the middle school have had a chance to go through the iReady tests yet to kind of show their progress so far. But she does preview of the kids that have taken it, where it's going, and the data as she was explaining it is looking really promising. And being, she talked about a few of the things that they're doing over there that's helping kind of catch some of the kids up. You know, they're making more progress in math than what they've been doing. And so I wish I had taken notes. Julie, of course, Julie will do a good job. Anyway, so I think the tours are wonderful. I went in not knowing what I would pick up because I've been in the school a lot, having two kids go through, but having that like one-on-one conversation with the principal to just say, here's the things that we're thinking about, and here's the struggles that we're having. Here's the things that the teachers are talking about. Super, super helpful. So I love that. And then today we had the OSBA Chair Cafe. And I think I told you guys about this opportunity that they're inviting the chairs of the school boards across the state to a once a month, just hour-long conversation to see what's happening. And they're previewing things for us. And today the legislative team from OSBA joined us and talked about a couple different bills that are working its way through the short legislature. If you want to read more details, one of the things that I usually try to keep, like I try to look at it once a week when the legislature's in, but OSBA up at the top under, I think it's what's new, but there's a legislative highlights. And so every week they'll post things that's happening or bills they're supporting. And so once you get to knowing the information each week, you can kind of scan and see what's happening. So that's a great resource for more details. But the two bills they talked about, one is essentially a training requirements bill for boards. And the idea is that every 2 years, we would be doing a self-assessment for us as a board and individuals on what training we have gaps in and where we need to shore that up. And we would be creating learning plans for ourselves. I think they called them professional learning plans. And then we would have to report back out on how we're doing on those professional learning plans. And we would have to seek that training from certified trainers. So I certainly thought the professional learning plan sounds like a great idea. The certified trainers piece worries me because I don't know what kind of a cost that's going to attach. So we may see our professional development costs for the board tick up if there's a few trainers as opposed to a lot, and then they end up charging more since they have to have certain certifications in order for us to meet that. So that's one of the bills going through. A couple people asked if it was likely for that to pass, and they thought it would. I mean, the legislative team at OSBA gave their opinion and thought it's highly likely that it'll pass. So that's that one. Another one is called the Leadership Stabilization Bill. And this bill really is intended to kind of help support superintendents with some of the things that we've seen around the state. There's 3 requirements in this bill. Sorry for my coughing. The more I talk, the more I cough. The first requirement is that a board would not be able to fire a superintendent for following the law, like literally. It's crazy. I mean, a couple of years ago, you could fire someone for not following the law, but apparently so many boards have fired superintendents for following the law. It is now going to be against the law to fire them. So I thought that was just like almost nonsense that we needed the bill, but so that's one. The second part of that bill is that a board could not tell a superintendent that we could not direct them to not follow the law. And then a third part of the bill I thought was interesting, and I think we're good with our contract with Mike, but it's intended to give a 1-year notice if a board is going to fire a superintendent for no cause. We just have to give a 1-year notice. And for districts that have contracts that are only 1-year contracts, essentially just indicating you don't need to renew the contract would kind of be your notice. So I thought that was interesting. So that bill is working its way through. That's called the Leadership Stabilization. And then the other thing they had noted, this is not a specific bill, but it's going to be a mention in another bill. The Secretary of State is working on providing protections for election workers to help keep them safe. And essentially, it's things like you can't post an election worker's home address online, that kind of thing. And so inside that bill, they're getting school board member protections written in to have the same protection that an election worker would have. So our home addresses would not need to be posted online. And I found that interesting. Others on the call, and there were people from all around the state, had mentioned that in their district, they're being followed around the minute they leave their house with video cameras. People are waiting for them to do something stupid or silly, or, trying to get a snapshot of something that can be construed in a different way, and, embarrassing them, getting them out of office, any of that kind of thing. So that was kind of the reason behind some of those elections or protections that the Secretary of State is working on to also extend to school board members. So the other one, and I hope they will send out a form for what this looks like, because I don't really understand everything I'm going to say, but this is the last one that they had talked about. A statement of economic interest for board directors. The law would require that a board director complete the form, I think every year, probably trying to disclose if we have an economic interest in something. So like if I'm part owner in a business, I would need to disclose that so the whole board would know if there's a potential conflict of interest at some point later on down the road. That's what I was interpreting. We didn't see a form, and I literally looked up the bill, and it just says the board has to fill out a statement of economic interest. It gave no example of what that meant. So, and the disclosure would be to the Government Ethics Commission. So that's what made me think, I think this is a financial conflict of interest thing. So that's a lot, but that was essentially their legislative update. I thought it was helpful to hear the things that OSBA is tracking through the bill. And I also found it was interesting. I kind of had an emotional reaction at the end of the meeting. So I sat there through all of it. We listened to all of these bills, and all of these are adult concerns. There's not a single bill that they highlighted that they're tracking right now that deals with kids. So, and I'll try not to cry. At the end of the meeting, I did cry. I just went outside and I kind of bawled for like a half an hour because we're spending all this time dealing with adult issues as opposed to putting legislation in place or dealing with issues that have to deal with kids. So it was just one of those, although it was super helpful, it was one of those crappy feeling moments for me where it was like, this is not what I signed up for. I didn't want to serve this way to deal with legal issues. Anyway, so there's my full disclosure on how the meeting went and then how I felt after the meeting. So, okay. All right. That's enough of that. Okay, trustee reports. I think we've got everybody on there. Why don't we move on to business manager report? Any questions for Chanel on that information?
I do have a comment. If there's not a question, I have a comment.
Sure.
Larry sent me a message and said that he missed his opportunity to express how much he appreciates Chanel and the finance team, that they, let's see, really appreciate them and their cooperation and speedy response to all of their requests. And that's coming from them. That's big, considering what kind of information or communication I was getting from them when I first came on board. So things are, they're pleased with the way the finance department is running.
That's fantastic. I deal with that area or line of work in my day job, and I know audits are a lot of work, Chanel. So thank you to you and to everybody for just throughout the whole entire year running your process as well, so that you can compile data and pass an audit with no exceptions. So that is great. All right. Okay, moving right along. Technology and facilities. Joel, any comments you want to highlight for us?
Oh, yeah, I was hoping to call out the business with our district office. If there was any folks that you might have saw that information regarding an opportunity for us to take care of a issue that actually, interestingly enough, Marilyn and I were visiting about this the other day, about the need for an exterior door for the district office has been a conversation almost back 14 years, I think. Dr. Stuber actually talked about it at one time, more than one time. So it really does fit the bill as being deferred maintenance, and the fact that we have an opportunity to put that door in with the construction that's happening this summer just really does, and I spilled it out there in my report, but it really does feel like the right thing to do. And I just wanted to make sure, I wanted to call that out to make sure you guys had any questions for me or any comments regarding that.
Yeah, Mark.
So the 15,000 would be for a door and a basic vestibule. Is that correct, Bill?
Yes, yeah, it would be a reconfiguration of actually Mike's office.
Right.
Kind of right behind where Mike's, right behind Mike's head would be a door, and to Mike's right would be a wall. And I'd be glad to show you some sketched up drawings of what that might look like if you're interested.
Mm-hmm. And then I see that more extensive reconfiguration would be about 211. And what would that entail?
Well, that would be, obviously, if Mike is being bumped, he's got to go somewhere. And he didn't want to share with me. Apparently my office wasn't big enough, or I didn't want to share with him. Maybe that's actually more accurate. But anyhow, we needed to be able to move. He would need to be relocated. And in doing so, then you're doing a big shuffle. And then we just looked at the district office as a whole and looked at how, is there a way to be more efficient with that space? And I'll give you some examples. We don't actually have a file room for the district office. We actually don't even have a meeting room for the district office. We often have to use the boardroom for that, but the boardroom, conference room, gets used heavily by the press lane because they also don't have a meeting room. So we had an opportunity to look at the entire district office as a frame and said, if we could do different things, what could we do? And that's where we got up to that higher number. And I can show you those drawings too, if you were interested, but they include things like a designated file room, a designated meeting room and things like that. But for now, what we're looking at is the vestibule, the secured entrance, and Mike obviously would need to be relocated into the district office further in down the hall.
So all of these would take place on the same site at Crest Lane, or are you looking at a different facility?
Yeah, they would all take, yeah, good question. We, at this point, it would be encompassing the footprint of the district office as it is right now. We would not expand our footprint at all. Actually, I would take that back. The only expanding of the footprint would be the concrete pad that encompasses the front door. That would be the expansion of the district office. And maybe redoing the sign.
Right. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you. No, great questions. Thank you.
Any other questions on facilities? I do think it's a great idea to put a front door in. I don't know how many times I've walked into the elementary office to have to sign in to come all the way down to the district office. So it would help keep traffic out of the elementary office as well.
Well, and that's the main purpose, because it has been pointed out as a security breach, or it compromises the security of the kids. Because we don't do background checks on everyone that checks in at that office in Crest Lane, walks through the building with the kids to the district office. And it's been pointed out as in our long range facility needs, been pointed out by our safety assessment, in our safety assessment as a security issue. And so, yeah, it's at the top of the list as we got to do this, because it's with the times the way they are, we just can't take any chances like that.
Yeah, and visitors aren't escorted down, and there's no line of sight, right? Like the secretary can't check somebody in and go, oh yeah, they actually did go into the right door. So
that is actually correct. And it's hard because, I mean, if we could, sure, we'd try to escort, but that involve a cost of staff too. And to keep in mind, you know, you can actually control who comes into an elementary school to some extent, but a district office is an entity that should be open to your public, and that's all your public. And so we need to have that door and have that ability to have anybody from the street come to visit, have an appointment with the superintendent, visit with me. And that person may or may not have the ability to visit the school per se, but they should have the right to visit this district office. So it's the timing is right to do this.
yeah, I see the need. Okay. All right. Yes.
So Joel, is this a done deal then? Will that happen during the retrofit?
We want to move forward with the vestibule and the front door. We added it to the board. I added to my report tonight because I wanted to make sure you guys were informed about it. And if there was any issues with that, we wanted to be able to hear about it. And so to answer your question is, I would say yes, unless there was a huge folks here tonight, you guys are our leaders, had concerns about it. But that's why I also called it out, because I wanted to make sure you have the opportunity to be heard. And I hear it. All of us here hear it. So.
But we don't need a vote.
No, not.
Okay. And that's not a big financial impact on your budget?
No, it's actually not. We do have, and Chanel can speak to this, but we have you guys recall last year, last spring, we're geared up for our new budget, of course. We have a fund 8,800 that's for maintenance, and in that fund was designated for deferred maintenance and facility needs, and this is where that would fit into it. This literally fits what you guys had already called out in an adopted budget last year that gives us the spending authority for that.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Transportation Board Report. Any questions on that? Okay, any questions on student services?
Amy, did you want to call out anything specifically for us or highlight something?
Just real quick, I would just say we had our third Language Arts Committee collaboration today, and I'm excited for the next few weeks. Well, our next board meeting, hopefully you all will get to see and hear more about the selections that the committees have made. We were able to go to the ESD on the 28th of January, and we took rubrics. They went, each team went through the rubric compared to all the curriculum that was there. It was a big task all day. And it was awesome to see how they narrowed it down to their top 1 or 2 selections. And so at this point, they are working on presentations to engage all stakeholders. So there will be opportunity for our community, our colleagues,
Great.
et cetera, to be part of that process here in the next couple of weeks.
Awesome.
So that's exciting work.
So a question just came up for me in my mind. This may be a really stupid question, Amy. When we talk language arts, does that include curriculum that would help English language learners?
That's a great question. So they are different. That being said, our committee did include Bethany as one of the key lenses that we were looking at. So we're looking for a curriculum K-12 that would partner well with our English language population of learners.
Okay.
That being
Sweet.
said, there is a different curriculum that supports those students as well.
Okay.
So again, the partnership and the crossover is really important, but it is different.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Well, we look forward to seeing that curriculum and learning more about what they're choosing.
So I have a process question around that. So as they go through the review and they choose, is there an adoption process that we have to be involved in to adopt that curriculum? And what does that look like?
Correct. So that would be, so we're working through Division 22 standards. And so yes, that next step that we're in right now is going to be getting stakeholder feedback. And so you all will be part of that process as well. And when we present, again, timeline, we are doing great on our timeline, but we're hoping to present that at our next board meeting to get approval from the school board.
Okay, thank you.
So that's the hope.
Okay, anything? Oh, Mike.
No, I mean, unforeseen with any catastrophes, another surge or something like that knocks us all off the rails, for a few weeks. You never know. That does slow things down though, when that happens.
That's true. And I should say our timeline did say our April board meeting, but we're a little bit ahead of schedule. So you should be hearing from us here pretty soon. But good point, Mike.
Awesome. Thanks, Amy. Right. Any questions for Julie? Julie, you did a wonderful video on the construction work that Mr. Nias's class is doing. Is it Sheds of Hope? Is that what I recall?
Correct.
Yeah.
Name of their project.
That video was really well done. Thank you for highlighting the project so well. And I think video speaks so well in this online environment that people are in. So getting these snippets and views of what is going on inside our school through video is wonderful.
Well, I sure enjoy it, and it is an incredible class. And I said, for him to welcome me in, and the students just did a great job. It was a fun piece to do, and I'm looking forward to expanding and highlighting more of the work that's happening around campus. So thank you.
Great.
Okay.
Anything else?
Yeah. Just we'll say thank you all to in advance for any work that you can do as well. As far as I hope Mark had relayed that he has already spent a little time trying to break the new designed website. I said, but I will welcome any and all feedback from the smallest thing about this should open in a separate window to anything large, or things as parents that you've been hoping to be able to find if things aren't intuitive. how they best work. But I said, I'm so grateful for your feedback and thank you all for your assistance with it. You're the best beta test audience we could ask for. So appreciate it.
I was going to say, Julie, I poked around today. This looks amazing. Thank you. I'm really excited about it. I like how accessible everything is as soon as you open it up. So I just really good job. I'm really excited about this. Our websites needed some love for a while.
Well, the thing I'm particularly excited about, as I mentioned in the report, the fact that we're designing and owning this ourselves as opposed to working through a template, it allows us to have that sort of immediacy and customize it to what the community needs. So as we have more videos, or if there's a particular area that opens up, and then we say, you know, as an example, the community resource section that we have there now, we've been working closely with the Family Resource Center, our McKinney-Vento liaison, about making those resources that they can walk families through and point to. And Amy very kindly helped bring in the school counselors. And so they're going to be adding resources. And that just gives us that freedom to be able to bring all the departments together and make more information hopefully easily accessible to our community. So if you have ideas or suggestions of things you'd like to see, would love to hear them.
Thank you for leading the effort, Julie.
So can I talk about money?
Sure.
So when we did some research and looked into the possibility of having somebody come in and build this website for us, it was anywhere from $50,000 to $80,000 initially. And then there was an upkeep and maintenance cost annually to continue to have that company, our website, under whatever company we contracted to. And then any changes that we would make after that would be an additional cost. That's a lot of money. The websites come out nice. If you go to some of these other districts, they have some really, really sharp websites, but after looking at Julie's, they really don't compare to what she's designing, which is really phenomenal.
Awesome. I love that we have the skills to do it in-house.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a project that will never be totally finished, and with it, hopefully we're starting with functionality, and then we'll just continue to add our images and improve it each and every time we touch it. So that's the hope.
Awesome. All right. We'll move on. Any questions on the elementary school board report? How about we just group them all together? Anything for elementary, middle, or high school? Okay, Mike.
Okay, well, it's been a busy month. I've really enjoyed all of my activities, believe me. Most enjoyable, I think, are my Wednesday afternoons with the staffs at each of the building, and being able to collaborate with them, participate in the icebreakers and build relationships through background connections and things of that nature. It's just been a lot of fun. And then Joel and I attended the Readiness and Emergency Management for Schools training and learned some things about being prepared for emergencies and crisis situations. So we'll be working on that with our A team over the summer, or when we return back from the school year, depending on what our timeline looks like as things continue to evolve towards the end of this year. We'll have a full out emergency response plan for just about any scenario that could come across or that's known to schools anyway. And I didn't mean to overwhelm you with that promise, Joel, but by gosh, we're going to do it. So we'll get there. But that was a very insightful training. I've been through some pretty extensive trainings before, but that one really had everything in it. And in layman's terms, pretty easy to follow along. Would you agree, Joel?
Oh, I do. I was very happy to be able to. Mike, you're the one put me onto that, and I was so happy to be able to attend. It was very good. And actually, what makes it for me know that it was good is it got me thinking more about what we can do at the district to prepare for those things. And I'm actually looking forward to those discussions and what we can do in the fall, which honestly is, you don't, if you walk away from a training feeling like that, that's a good thing. That you're ready to move on. You're ready to do the next thing. So thanks. Yes.
Especially a project that big. It's like Aguero going into the ELA adoption process and being excited about that. At this point in the year, if you can find some excitement in something, it's got to be good. So, and then my highlights that I wanted to report out on was COVID-19 and the Omicron update, and the motivational speaker that's going to be coming to Creswell to lift us up. Just some of the data on the Omicron strain. When it hit our district, it hit over the break, the winter break, but it really hit us the first day back, right out of the chute. And the first day we had 331 students absent from school. The first day back. That's crazy. They're so ready to come back to school, and we had 331 of them out. That's a third of our district. And 12 staff members, 9 of them being licensed staff. So we were really scrambling, the principals and, to fill spots where we didn't have subs. It was just like, plugging the holes and, just having breaches everywhere. They were really running hard, and they ran themselves ragged to make those first few days back operational. By the end of the first week, we have 470 students and 19 staff absent from school. The majority of that staff being licensed staff. That's 45% of our student body, 15% of our instructional staff. That's why the message went out. That's the tipping point. We were there. And if that would have continued to increase next week, we would have had to stop operations. Well, we wouldn't have had operations. We just had to shut down for a few days or a week or something. But we pulled through, and one of the reasons why is because we had emergency subs available. We went through a process with TSPC to get some of our highly qualified classified staff, our EAs, licensed with emergency license to substitute in classrooms should we have an emergency situation. And that was our saving grace. That pulled us out, was just having those subs at each building. On the second week back, we had 297 students absent by Friday and 16 staff. So the numbers started to come down, but 16 staff is a lot of staff to be out in this district. By the time we hit the third week, we had our licensed staff coming back in and our classified staff now taking over in the absences. It just worked. They just switched that way. And so we have 243 students absent that week and 11 staff. And then the fourth week, 223 students out and 6 staff. So the trend of the decline, or the peak and the decline, was rather quick. And that's what it was predicted. The only thing that, you could see the peak coming. I could see the peak coming in our district, but I really didn't know if our county was peaking, because that would lengthen the duration of the surge in our community if Lane County stayed high longer. So that was the other metrics that I was monitoring. And then this week, I'm happy to say, well, I'm not happy to say we have 220 students out so far. And that's a one-day total, 220. And our staff absences are around 12, so they bounced back up a little bit this week. But all those absences, only 6 of them were due to sick leave with the staff. So after the weekend, some of them caught the bug or the flu or something like that. But this is our typical weekly cycle. It's up a little high Monday, Tuesday. Wednesday, we plateau, and then Thursday, Friday, we start to come down a little bit into the weekend. And that's what happened to it. That's what's been happening to us since we came back from break. But we're getting through it. And I mean, I'm just so pleased with the staff that they just pulled together, and you know, everybody just worked their butts off to make that happen, to keep us operational. Any questions on that piece? Anyone? Okay. On to the motivational speaker, Mr. Hymas. So we, the district and community leaders, have jointly inked the deal with world-renowned motivational speaker Chad Hymas to visit and provide a lift for the entire Creswell community. On March 16th, he will be speaking to all CSD staff in the afternoon on that day, and then to the Creswell community in the evening. And then on the 17th, the following day, he'll be speaking at 2 school assemblies. So we'll have one in the AM and one in the PM. And we're still trying to figure out the schedules on which one end the high school is going to be on. The middle school will be on the opposite end. And the 4th and 5th graders are going to join the middle school assembly. So they'll take a walk over there and be a part of it. They're going to be so dang excited just to walk over to the middle school. I mean, that's, and a lot of them are going to be with their brothers and sisters over there. So that's fun for them too. And then that's what's happening with Chad Hymas. We're really excited for him to come in. That's going to be really fun. It's going to be great for this entire community to have a world-renowned, #1 world-renowned motivational speaker coming to Creswell. That's big news. So again, I can't say enough about our community and the support from our community. This all came to us from the community, and we're happy to join in with them on this. Any questions on the Chad Hymas visit?
I'm assuming, Mike, board members are welcome to attend any of those 4. I mean, clearly the community conversation in the evening, but if board members wanted to attend with staff or either assembly, we're welcome to do so.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And you would get an invite specifically to be at the staff one, but you're welcome to attend any of them, of course.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing him as well. Okay.
Any other questions on my other activities? Anybody have anything they want me to speak to on that stuff?
Mike, I know on your Wednesdays with early release, you are making such a concerted effort to get away from everything else that draws your attention to get out and meet with staff. So I love that you're doing that. And I saw that you had lunch with the custodial staff and breaking bread with people and just sitting down and hearing their concerns is wonderful. So I think that's a wonderful priority that you've set.
Thank you. The custodial group, they are really hardworking people. They've got a lot of responsibility on their backs. And I try to have a meeting with them 3 meetings a year, 3 lunches with them a year is what I try to have. And last year, I think we only got 1 in because couldn't go anywhere. You couldn't have lunch anywhere. You couldn't even be anywhere in person. So, but it was really a good day to spend out there with them. And Chanel was along that ride too, and she's supervising that team, and she's digging that a lot. It's a good group of people. Gosh, they get a lot of work done. They do. God, they work hard. We all work hard, but they work hard.
Yes, they do. All right, anything else? Yeah, Mark.
So Mike.
Yes.
Can we address what might happen, what we might see with the end of the mask mandate, what kind of issues might we encounter with that? Is this going to be is it going to be mask optional? What are we looking at the end of March here?
Well, I think you're going to go two ways. And it's either going to be, you're going to stay with the mask requirement, or you're going to go mask optional. I know that I personally have my preference, but I do want to hear from other folks too. But in the meantime, while I'll have to tell you, honestly, I didn't think we were going to be able to go to a mask optional procedure until well into the spring, when the numbers came way down, because that's kind of what happened last year. You know, they loosened up in the spring because the case counts went way down. And based on that trend and what I could see with this Omicron trend, I didn't see that happening until spring break, and then them kind of revisiting that masking mandate after that. When they released that, none of us were prepared for, no superintendent knew that was coming.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they let us know that morning we were invited to a meeting to hear the OHA release that information. Now, and this is typical, this is how it happens. They release, then ODE gets it, and they start putting their work to it, and they develop procedures around whatever the shift is going to be. Then they roll it out to legal. The attorneys then look at it to see where the liabilities are. And then it comes to your local health authority. And then they tell us they're part of the local decision making. They're a partner in it. So Lane County Public Health weighs in. Lane County Public Health won't weigh in until ODE and OHA develop procedures for RSSL. And OSBA liability weighs in on the liability risk. Now, in the past, what OSBA PACE liability has said to districts is, we'll cover liabilities if you comply with the recommendations or the guidance. And ODE is saying they strongly recommend masking. So I'm really interested, and along with my colleagues, superintendent colleagues, on what PACE liability is going to say about the risk to us. You know, they haven't weighed in on this conversation yet, because they haven't seen the RSSL, and we can't make a move until March 31st, and that's after it goes through the process. But when we can start planning is when those agencies are passing the procedures down our way to Lane County Public Health and to me. And so to me right now, I'd say the biggest barrier is time. It's a whole bureaucratic process going through those agencies to get down to where I understand what, how to plan. I do want to make a plan.
Right.
So, yeah, there's a lot of thoughts, and I'll come back to you all on that one, probably in the March meeting.
Okay.
And let you know what's, unless they make another shift. And, you know, I wouldn't put it past them to make another shift next week and say, hey, we're not waiting until March 31st, or we're going to pull off that recommendation of the local decision making altogether. I don't, it's hard to predict what they're doing, because they don't really include us in the conversation. We just get the direction.
Okay, thank you.
Good question.
Yeah. Any other questions for Mike? Okay, we are gonna move into an executive session, and we're gonna close regular session. I do have a statement that I need to read for the regular session. The school board will now meet in executive session to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to carry on labor negotiations. The executive session is held pursuant to ORS 192.6602D. Representatives of the news media shall not be allowed to attend. All others not invited by the board are asked to leave the meeting and have a great evening. The board would like to invite Superintendent Mike Johnson, our board secretary, Marilyn Cruzan, and Mr. Tim Keeley, our labor relations consultant for negotiations, to this executive session. Cameras and tape recorders and other recording devices shall not be used during the executive session, and no decision will be made in executive session. At the end of the executive session, we really need an acronym for that. The end of the executive session, the board will not return to open session. We'll just close the meeting at the end. So Amy, Julie, and Joel, thank you so much for attending. I hope you have great evenings. And Joel, you're going to turn off the recording of our meeting before you leave.
Yeah, I'm going to do two things. I'm actually going to turn off, well, three things. I'm going to give
Okay.
hosting to you, Lacey.
Okay.
I'm gonna turn off the recording, turn off our live broadcast. And the fourth thing that I thought I was going to have to do is no longer relevant. We had two attendees. I wanted to confirm that they left, and I've just
Okay.
confirmed that they've left. So you don't have an audience from there.
Awesome.
So,
Okay. Thank you, Joel.
You're welcome.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.